Alright, so now that we have our source images set up for our person, we have our summary. We have obviously who we've chosen, it's been approved. Now we can go through and make what are called, and I'm just calling these a planning sheet, okay? It's ideally a way for us to kind of lay out how we want to assemble this kind of thing, okay? Because we're going to have lots of images in here. Like, for instance, in this case, I have this torso, I have this torso, I have that torso, I have several backgrounds, I have several fish, I have several poses that my character could be in. Okay, so I just want to start planning and saying, okay, what if I assemble the images this way or that way or whatever? So the first thing I'm going to do is make a new document, 8 inches by 10 inches by 300 resolution. And I'm just going to bring in some of the images. So I'm just going to start off with, okay, I know I'm going to need this hair, so I can just drag this hair. This is Liz Fizz 4. So I'll find Liz Fizz 4 and just drag it into Photoshop. I'll resize it. Okay, and because it's a smart object, I can always size it up if I need to. Here's the seashell one. I'm going to need that for sure. So I'll drop that in. I'll resize it. And I'm just going to go through and just grab all the images that I'm going to assemble for one of the things. Okay, so I'm just looking at this. I want to have this image and this image in here, unless I'm going to composite and say I'm going to take part of this image and put it inside that image for whatever reason. Wouldn't make sense in that case, but you could. Okay, I know in my final example I used this torso, so I'll drag that torso in here. And I used that background, so I'll drag this. Now you're not going to know which ones you're going to use yet. You're just kind of like analyzing, okay, do I want to use this background and this background? You may change your stuff, you may modify it, but I just want to see that planning stage. I just want to see you starting out on there. So you're just going to assemble this, and I've assembled one already. I've done it in InDesign, still works the same. And here's all the images that I would use for that final thing. I also want to see an image of your character that's kind of like a reference. So in this case, I've used this image, but obviously I could have used other images of her kind of floating in the water. There's lots of images of Ariel out there, okay? So you would have that image up here too. And then what I would do is just save the image as a JPEG, Sarcona, planning sheet, Little Mermaid, underscore 01. Okay, Sarcona underscore planning sheet, underscore Little Mermaid, underscore 01. And I would save it and hit OK. All right, so you're going to have 3 of these things that when they're done, they will look like this. And it'll be Little Mermaid planning sheet number 1, number 2, number 3. That way I know which ones I'm looking at. Okay, now the goal is after you have these things, eventually you'll go in and use one of these as your end product that you use to put together your stuff. Okay, so I'm looking at, as I'm assembling this thing, I'm looking at all the different pieces here and saying, okay, well, here's my main girl that I used, or I'm going to use. I know that I want to have more hair kind of coming out, so that's why I have these couple hair pictures that are inside here. I know that I'm going to need to replace the torso, so I used that. I know I'm going to need to replace her bottom half, so I used this. I know I'm going to need seashells, I used that. I know I'm going to need a fin, and this one doesn't look very good, this little tail on here, so I use something like that, okay? Now remember, you also have to, it's up here, you also have to combine, if we look at the details of this, combine at least 6 images, 6 different images together for your character to create your final masterpiece. Okay, and then 2 or more images should be used for the background. So as you're doing this stuff down here and you're planning that, make sure you take that into account to say, okay, well, if I only have 4 images for the main character, I need to add a couple more in here. Maybe I need to change out an arm or change out a leg or whatever the case is. Okay, so that's what you're going to have to do in order to create that. So once you have this, you'll have Sarcona planning sheet. You'll have 3 of these things, and you can zip those up and then turn those into your Dropbox folder, and then share the link inside of the appropriate area on the Angel webpage. All right, and then that'll be the second planning stage, and then after this, we're going to actually go in and start making our character.